Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Subramaniam Maslamani. I am a Tamil. Today, my topic is Sri Lanka, a nation inexorably drifting and darting towards the black hole. The Sri Lankan situation can be summarized in one sentence. When a murderer is the head of any organization, that organization is bound to become murderous. In 60 years since independence, this nation of Sri Lanka is slowly and steadily drifting and accelerating towards self-destruction. The rule of the law, the constitution of the nation, the etiquette of the government, and our God-given moral directions are being violated by a succession of criminals. Mahinda Rajapaksa is a product of this narcissistic nation and its culture. Mahinda Rajapaksa is a criminal turned state terrorist. When a society sees a criminal as their savior and a leader, that nation has already rotten from inside. What we see is a pumpkin nation. Pumpkin nation? You know pumpkin. A pumpkin rots from inside out. And all along it looks so beautiful till one day, all of a sudden, it collapses. The social immune system has failed and the anti-social viruses have invaded and taken over the whole body politic and people. Sri Lankan people have proven beyond any doubt that they cannot manage themselves. Racism, fanaticism, and narcissism has given birth to impunity, infallibility, and invincibility. They need a foreign agency to administer the rule of the law. It needs a Sir Winston Churchill and a George Marshall to straighten things out. As a Tamil, I am telling my brethren, Sinhalese brethren, that you must stop living in a world of racism, fanaticism, narcissism, and emotion-induced exuberance and hallucination. You must change the course and chart a new direction. Either you do it or it will be forced upon you. The choice is yours and yours only. Watch what is happening in the Middle East and learn fast. Rajapaksa is your baby and your product and was incubated in your own belly, and this monster is born. He has taken over the state and has become a state terrorist. You have chosen a confounded and confirmed murderer as your president. What were you folks thinking? A criminal dressed like a clown amidst the world of well-attired leaders and diplomats. He is an eyesore. In the meantime, pay attention to the Arab Spring and the Asian Spring that is coming. I hope the visiting TNA to USA pay attention to what the Americans say. Tamils have to lead the liberation of Sinhalese and Sri Lanka. If TNA do not understand the intellect of the American dialect, call us and we will interpret it for you. Democracy is sweeping the globe and be part of it. That is the fundamental message to all people and all their tyrants. I wonder where Mahinda Rajapaksa will go. Will he hide in the Yala jungle or swim south to South Pole? I superimposed the bloodied face of Gaddafi on top of Mahinda Rajapaksa and said, "Thank you, God. But please give him a chance to listen to the people who suffered under him before you take them away." Can a suspected murderer become the president of a nation? The chronological, the historical, circumstantial, implied and express evidences indicate that Mahinda Rajapaksa has criminal journal entries to his credit. That was since 1970. Yes, it was 40 years of criminality that went uninvestigated, unpunished, and with impunity. It may be all hearsay, but hearsay can be credible too. For why there's so much of murder and murderer talk surrounds Mahinda Rajapaksa. It can be corroborated by his action and behavior too, such as inviting an island reconvicted criminal, Maradan Kadavala Jinadasa Yakadaya, to the presidential palace. Then having Mervyn Silva, Dominda Silva, etc. by his thorn side. On top of it, today he sent a letter of condolence to Hannibal Gaddafi, the son of Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi may be a hero to the Libyans, but when a man commits even one single murder, whether as an ordinary person or as a head of a nation, he cannot be head of a nation. Democracy and freedom are the hallmark of civilization, and that clearly distinguishes us from the rest of the animal kingdom. In his condolence letter to Hannibal Gaddafi, Rajapaksa says, besides other things, these ungrateful bastards who try so hard to rule and control with iron fists do not appreciate us. I wonder whom is he calling bastard? Is the pot calling the kettle black? I think either he has a different set of moral code of ethics, or he is insane, or he is suffering from memory loss, or a combination of all. He further states, we have seen this type of behavior of the bastards happen many, many times here in Sri Lanka. Last week, some of my people killed some of my people. This is how we get thanked every day in trying to do good. We must thank him for being forthright in accepting that he has thugs, criminals, and murderers within his ranks. By the way, whom is he calling bastards? Is he referring to the Libyans or the NATO? Calling Libyan people as bastards and calling Bin Laden a terrorist is not going to go well in the Arab countries. Muammar Gaddafi may be your friend, sir, but he ruled for 42 years and he killed several thousand people, like the way you kill innocent Tamils. 40,000 killed, 150,000 unaccounted for. As a president, you are not even concerned about it. To you, one life of your friend is worth more than 40,000 innocent Tamil lives. You cannot be head of a nation even if one murder goes uninvestigated and one murderer goes unpunished. But you have the audacity to invite a serial killer and celebrate and congratulate him. Birds of the same feather flock together. Are you a murderer too? As I told you earlier, the chronological, historical, circumstantial, implied and express evidences indicate that you are a criminal since 1970. I do not know if you were married before, but someone told me that you killed your first wife circa 1970. When we say you killed, it was always a proxy killing. You never committed these murders to yourself. These murders were done by your local criminals. And all evidences were buried by murdering the murderer. The proxy murderer is murdered by another murderer. It's a standard procedure among organized criminals like mafia. If under your watch and rule, how come there is a huge proliferation of drug trade, mafia, and paramilitary gangs? That is your intellect and modus operandi. Don't you know that the same trademark is obvious in the 2009 genocide of the Tamils? I know ultimately you will agree for a full-blown investigation, but not until you are satisfied that all evidence have been removed, hidden, or obliterated. You think as a murderer, we think like a murderer. Let's see who wins. In 1956, a man by the name SWRD Bandaranaike, indoctrinated and intoxicated a nation of innocent people into the hole of shame, racism, and fanaticism. These were the innocent people, for some reason, were told that if they have to progress, that they had to regress into destructive behavior. 2 generations and 60 years later, the nation is at the brink of the black hole and tipping point. In 2 generations, it has become a culture. In a world of international affairs, this nation is unable to accommodate and adapt. I do not know if it was a curse on this nation, but such well-run and beautiful nation was turned in the wrong direction by S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike, then by G.R. Jayawardena, and continued by Mahinda Percy Rajapaksa. Once I traveled through Athanagala in Sri Lanka. I saw the tombstone of this man called S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike. A huge rock was placed on top of his burial spot. I asked the driver, "Why such a huge stone?" He said, "Sir, he died with a huge burden and huge responsibility." My boss, who is a well-educated single, said, "No, it's not true. We do not want this devil to rise up and ruin our nation again. He has ruined it enough. This change, as envisaged by him, took this nation close to the precipice and to the black hole." Now let me ask my Sri Lankan singles, what do you think? Did your life get any better in the last 60 years? You could not live side by side with 2 million Tamils. Now you had to put up with 6 million people breathing down your throat. Sri Lankan people, for some reason, are becoming introverted and cannot see the point of views and the diverse views of the world. They are defiant and detrimental. We understand their unique nature and position in the planet Earth. They want to maintain their culture, language, and heritage. But that is not what their leaders are doing. They are taking these people in the wrong direction. The leaders have and are blaming their inability on other people like Tamils. The other people are like them, with the same anatomy and physiology. Why cannot they simply learn to live with the other communities? How do I maintain my uniqueness? Simply by working hard every day, 7 days a week, so that I do not become dependent on others or blame others for my failures. In fact, I make more, I create more, and I share with others. And that way they honor me, respect me, and identify me as a great citizen. That is what every singles have to become. I'm not blaming them. It is their corrupt leaders who have led them in a disastrous path, and they are taking them close to the black hole. Someone said about the October 8th, 2011 shootout between two criminal gangs led by Duminda Silva, a drug dealer, and Lakshan Premachandra, a local enforcer. Why is that Duminda Silva was not arrested? One lawmaker replied, "How can they arrest Duminda Silva? He is their baby. And besides, in the case of drug cartel, in that case, the drug cartel will ask why Mahinda Rajapaksa is not arrested for the 1991 twin murders. Mahinda Rajapaksa will further say, it is an internal matter within our cartel. Why should others be worried? Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't." He has already sent a subtle and implied message to the law enforcement what outcome he expects. Remember the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. Maharaja, Mahadanamukta, Mahinda Raja Rajapaksa, the King of Kings. How can Mahinda Rajapaksa openly accept that Duminda Silva is wrong and guilty? Then it implies that he was guilty of the 2 murders that were committed in 1991, to which Ranil Wickremesinghe is the best witness, alive. I am surprised why he was not killed by Mahinda Rajapaksa. It will be interesting to see if Duminda Silva will be charged and found guilty with the murder of Bharata Lakshan Premachandra. The paradox Mahinda will be facing is his own conscience. How can I charge a man for murder when I had not been charged for my own murders? Human mind is so funny. Our conscience is a very powerful adjudicator, governor, gyroscope, and gyrostabilizer. In most investigations, especially the investigators keep grilling till one point the suspect will be forced into answers, and either way he answers, he will be proved guilty. Mahinda Rajapaksa has been forced into a situation where he will be guilty of crimes either way. If Rajapaksa does not charge Raminda with murder and find him guilty with murder, Rajapaksa is guilty of cover-up. And if we charge him with murder, he will be found guilty by his own acolytes for having double standard as to why he is not guilty of the twin murders in 1991. And they will say, Duminda Silva is guilty of one single murder, but you are guilty of two murders. Mr. Rajapaksa, you have been checkmated. But it does not matter to you. Wise people must not use their wiseness to wiseness, for you will end up in the vice grip of justice. When about 100 people, 100 people armed with rifles and revolvers roam the streets, it is not simply an act of violence. It's a culture of violence with impunity. That is a small army, reminiscent of the Mexican drug cartel. We all know what the outcome of the trial will be. Duminda Silva not guilty. Folks, rest assured. In a country like Sri Lanka, it is hard to prove a case if you are not on the right side of the ruling criminals. If you are on the side of the ruling side, if you are on the ruling side of the criminals, you don't need justice. It will be delivered you by the criminals in favor of you, and the country will be favor you, and the country will be less one citizen the next day. If you are against them, you will be killed. As it is, Mahinda is not going to charge Duminda Silva with murder. After all, he is the close buddy of his son Namal Rajapaksa and part of the drug cartel. Therefore, Mahinda Rajapaksa is guilty of impeding justice, and he should be arrested in any country wherever he goes. He has lost his diplomatic immunity as provided to head of the states. But if the head of the state is guilty of crime, especially murder, he should not be permitted to enter any civil nation. What we need in the world is at least one leader with guts and courage to arrest him and put him on trial. Someone has to set the precedence and say no to suspected murderers and tyrants. Mahinda Rajapaksa has about 40 years experience in criminal activities, and most of the crimes were done by proxies, which means he hires criminals to carry out anything from murder to extortion. And then the proxy is murdered by another proxy, thus the evidence and the connection is broken. When the first proxy is killed, his crimes die with him, and the second proxy is charged for the murder of the first proxy. Mahinda Rajapaksa is a criminal with a criminal education, an unbeatable combination for underworld activities. Remember that he is getting old, so he looks pathetic and patient. Being from Hambantota, a remote arid area in the southern part of Sri Lanka, there is nothing much of civilization, and people live side by side with animals in the Yala forest. There seems to be a pattern to Mahinda Rajapaksa's modus operandi. The same pattern has been extended and extensively used around the nation. The problem in Sri Lanka is that if you speak against the Rajapaksa cartel, you are dead. And how you get killed will never be any connection to the Rajapaksas. Being a criminal and a criminal lawyer, he knows what exactly to do. Within Sri Lanka, the chances of him brought before a criminal justice commission is nil or almost nil. The law enforcement, the, the judiciary, the judiciary, the police and military are all either his men or the men who dispense justice without fear of consequences. Injustice without consequences. It is not unusual to hear of people missing or disappearing without any traces or evidences. The million-dollar dilemma is that there are no international protocols to arrest when he travels to other countries. What evidence other countries have to arrest him? Besides, he is not allowing international investigators to enter and investigate. And moreover, people are terrified to lead evidence for fear of consequences. But what other nation can do is to ban Sri Lanka from world and regional organizations. I think the Commonwealth should impose their own economic sanctions on Sri Lanka. It was very intriguing and interesting to hear about the reaction of Maharaja Mahendra Mahilinda Rajapaksa to the death of Colonel Gaddafi. He was their friend and financier. Why didn't you offer him sanctuary and asylum in the first place? If no Arab country intervened in this Libyan internal affairs, there must be very many compelling reasons for them to let it happen and let him go. All this goes to prove your inability to judge pragmatically and accurately. Mahinda Rajapaksa is a morally corrupt, mentally underdeveloped, physically overdeveloped, emotionally unstable, and psychologically disturbed man. All these current events and the historical events of riots, rapes, murders, plundering indicate that Sri Lanka is on a de-evolutionary direction that will end up in more and more exaggerated, exacerbated form of racism, nazism, fanatism, state-sponsored internal strife, and state terrorism. The Sri Lankan government lacks credible law enforcement, unbiased judiciary, and all appointments are politically accented and accentuated. There are two sets of rules, one for the ruling party and for the people. If you are with the ruling party, you may be exonerated, but if you are not with the ruling party, you will be exonerated. So then there is no state, no nation, no sovereign except the Rajapaksas. Rajapaksas and their cronies can override and overrule the constitution of the nation. The constitution is the supreme power and supreme law of the nation. That has been assuaged by the Rajapaksa dysentery and dynasty. Now you know why Rajapaksa like China, Russia, Iran, Colonel Gaddafi, Robert Mugabe, Rwanda, and Somalia. They fit his nature. The Tamil issue was a mere distraction from the inability of the Sri Lankan leaders to manage their affairs. The family, the community, and the nation. They used Tamils as scapegoats and took their people on a wild goose chase. Fooling Sinhalese people was very easy. They say, look at the Demilo. They got everything. You have nothing. So go kill them. Go loot them. Go rape their women and take their property. Race and religion are the heroin and opium of the masses. And racism and fanatism can become very lethal and destructive. It went on for 60 years, and the Mahinda Rajapaksa and his gang of criminals and drug dealers are the product of a narcissistic society. There is a sliver of opportunity for the Sinhalese people, that is, join the Tamils, to chart a new direction based on peace, freedom, equality, fraternity, respect, and responsibility. One man looked at the society and said, there's nothing good to salvage in them. Another man said, what a grand opportunity to create a great new society. That second person is a Tamil. Tamils are world-class people. I am proud that I am a Tamil. More you abuse Tamils, more Tamils we become. We simply multiply exponentially. When a government is headed by a criminal, there's only one way to justice. Make everyone a criminal. One lady said, "The only way to justify my compromised modesty is to allow my husband to flirt, daughter to prostitute, and my son to become pimps." Can you see it now? Do you see what I see? If I am guilty, let me make everyone guilty for some crime or same crime, then it is all well justified. Can you name one person in Sri Lanka who is not deceitful, who is not a thief, who is not a criminal, who is not a murderer, who is not a pimp, who is not a prostitute, who is not a drug dealer, or at least a corrupt government employee? They say the way the mother is, the way the child will be. Similarly, the way the yarn is, the way the fabric will be. When you have a murderer, criminal, and self-righteous president, the people are bound to be like him. That's what Mahinda Rajapaksa is doing. Mind you, folks, I have lots of respect for him. He's a smart crook and a wise criminal. That Nobel Prize and honorary degree goes to him, and it's not easily challengeable. So then 18 million out of 20 million people are now not free, but loose in the nature. They can do whatever they want to do. No Sinhalese will be ever found guilty of any crime against them. And if you belong to the ruling Rajapaksa party, no holds barred, no restraint, and anything goes. The law enforcement and the judiciary cannot intervene lest they may be dead or destined to some deserted hinterland. Imagine a nation of 250,000 thugs, criminals, and drug dealers hired, trained, and uniformed, and it's called the military. And 100,000 half-educated people hired and trained as government servants to implement the wishes of the ruling party. What can a nation do? One Sri Lankan senior minister said, "We had to send more and more of our ladies to work in the Middle East, to bring in foreign exchange, to pay for the luxuries of the ruling elite." Where is this nation darting towards? It is going towards the black hole. When the lawmakers are the lawbreakers, armed with military weapons, now it is rifles, soon it will be bazookas and shoulder-fired missiles, and there will be chaos on the streets. Already people are spending their time on crime, but soon it will be war among gangs. Where is this nation heading towards? It is heading towards the black hole. What Sri Lanka needs is a Sir Winston Churchill to go in, clean up the mess. A George Marshall to go in and impose rule of the law to rebuild the nation. And a Nuremberg trial to sweep up the criminals, drug dealers, and the Rajapaksas and their gangs and put them on trial. A new constitution is made like the one that was imposed on Japan and Germany, so that the ugly head of racism, fanaticism, and Nazism do not raise its heads. And the law enforcement recruited from based on family and individual character, who will uphold the constitution and the laws above all. It is a responsibility of the Tamils, especially the diaspora, to align with powerful nations, to impose this martial decree upon everyone in Sri Lanka. As I always said, Sri Lanka needs a Tamil president. That's all, folks, for this week. And next week, 70 million Tamils worldwide. Unite first, stay together, work hard, and never ever give up. The best is yet to come, and we are winning. My name is Subramaniam Maslamani, a world-class Tamil powered by convictions, commitments, and conscience.